Hello, good evening. I hope everybody's doing well. Here is another live broadcast for you. We are going to talk about LinkedIn today, and we are going to target different strategies that we can use on LinkedIn to build business profiles, to improve the visibility of a business, and make things good, as in lead generation for business owners. Today, I have invited a very good friend of mine to talk about generating business leads through LinkedIn, and he's an expert in that. He's a pro. He runs a company called LinkedIn MBA, and his name is Frank. How are you,
Yeah, hi.
Frank?
Thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to sharing valuable information with your audience and doing the best I can to help.
Thank you so much for joining me tonight, and I hope your little one is doing well. Frank has got a little baby very recently, and we were very excited about this. And we talked about parenthood a few moments ago, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I mean, I can go a little bit into like my story and how I'm kind of how I've gotten to the position I'm in today. If that's how you want me to start, I can start with a story, or I could start with
Yes.
tips. Either way, I'll let you lead. Okay, I'll start with a story then. So the I initially was I had a company in web design, and in web design, one thing that was really frustrating in web design is you would collect half of the payment up front from clients, and then the other
Yeah.
half of the payment was normally attached to getting content from people. I'm sure you're in the web design space, right? So, for whatever reason, that second half of the payment from the client was attached to them giving you content, and you didn't agree to that, right? And so
Yes.
sometimes the client would sometimes take long time to provide content,
Yeah.
and you know in a lot of respects, you're helping companies, look good, brand themselves the right way.
Yes.
And I think eventually, I, we still do a little bit of web design, but my
Mm.
focus really is helping companies grow. And web design is part of that.
Part of
But
that, yes. Because
yeah,
that's where we start. That's where we start
that's
our
you
online
start.
visibility.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to brand yourself. You have to look good in front of the
Yeah.
client. And if you don't look good, then you're going to lose a lot of clients. 100%. That's the foundation of your brand. But then also you want to distribute. You want to get viewers. You want to get a lot of people coming to your website.
Yeah.
You have to have a good looking website first of all. That's
Mm.
important. But then you need to start bringing viewers to your website. And so I've always been curious as to how I'm going to help other companies grow.
Mm.
And I think the inflection point for me where I started really focusing on LinkedIn is when my dad had a big health scare. This was kind of during the time when I was about to get married. We had 300 people coming to our wedding. We're in California, so nothing's cheap in California.
Yeah.
And and I also had my dad was in the hospital. He was in a facility as well, a home, a nursing home. I didn't put him there, by the way, but and I would have never put him there, to be clear. But in order to kind of help him get out of the health condition that he found himself in because of the healthcare system, I was able to generate leads. I was able to generate leads through LinkedIn, pay for his healthcare, and also pay for my 300-person wedding through
So
LinkedIn.
that was the time. That was the time when you realized that LinkedIn could be a great way of generating leads for business.
Yeah, I was getting some web design leads at one point through LinkedIn, and but then I realized, as I had to really improve my learning curve and learn how to really generate leads through LinkedIn, I thought maybe I can help other people, teach them this, or maybe I can do it for other people. Actually, it was mainly me doing it for other people, and I was able to again pay a 300-person wedding in LA, which was not cheap, and I was able to pay for a lot of my dad's healthcare expenses. And
Okay.
so, as you can imagine, it's probably upwards of $100,000, give or take, that I had to do in a short period of time, because I had to pay for these things, take care of my family. And so I learned very quickly how to generate leads on LinkedIn. And I think I've always been uh, not sure what direction I was going to take it in until recently, during the COVID crisis. Really interestingly enough, I feel like my business, I have to be very mission driven in order for me to succeed at a high level. You know, like mission driven as I impact
That's
society
true
in
for
some
all
way.
businesses.
Was that?
That's true for all businesses. Everybody
Yeah,
has to be very driven.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's true. Even if they're in mission driven businesses, they're not always mission driven, which hurts the
Yeah.
business, right? So once you're more mission driven, you know, meaning you're going to impact people in some positive way, or you're going to help a large group of people in some way, or help society improve in some capacity. Um, I think that's what during this COVID crisis, I've really always been trying to find my mission, right, my purpose, and I think I've kind of, you know, hit it on the mark regarding my purpose, because now I'm focused on the life science space, medical devices, pharmaceutical companies that are really going to change the world. In fact, what we're doing now is we're doing conferences online, and I'll go into
Okay.
like tips as to how you can do some of these things. But we're going into conferences online that connect venture investors with medical device companies. And so I did an interview today with a guy who helps with diabetes. He has like a digital telemedicine platform that helps with diabetes. And he said that
Okay.
he with diabetes, he's changing a lot of lives. And he actually had a picture of the first boy that he changed the life of in his office, and that really touched me. I was like, wow. I'm going to help this particular CEO get funding to help him scale his business to help more patients, like he helped this young boy, where he saved his life. So
This is
that
very
that to me, that resonated with me, and I was like, wow, okay, I'm glad I'm doing this. It validated me, you know, for a moment, because I feel like what I'm doing now is helping patients, a lot of patients, and helping patients get the right healthcare in their hands,
yes.
literally and figuratively, right? Because you know, we have like things like where people can treat themselves with oops, did we disconnect there? They can treat their diabetes and they don't need a physician. There's companies like portable MRI devices this guy's developing that we're working with, and he can make MRI devices available in people's homes essentially, which is really
Okay.
really interesting, especially
Yeah.
in that space. It's very difficult to get those MRI scans. Um, now, you know, I think I really do believe that once you become mission driven, your everything else in your business will change.
Yes.
Um, I'm starting to realize that more so than ever. You know, I just had a daughter that was born about 2 months and 1 week ago. So I'm
Yeah.
more mission driven, and I feel like it kind of changes things, right?
It does.
For most people. So yeah, I'm very grateful for that, and I'm happy to, you know, share any tips regarding this, regarding what I'm doing now and what I've done in the past. I'm happy to share everything with you guys.
Great. So, Frank, how do we start? Like,
Oh,
for a
for
company
whatever
that's just
reason, your
with a
audio is
LinkedIn
off. I don't
profile,
know
what do
why.
you recommend?
It's happening again.
Can you hear me?
Hold on a second. Is it on my end where the audio turns off?
Yes, I think, but it's not showing here on the screen, and I can still hear you just fine. Can you hear
Mm.
me? Okay, let's wait while Frank comes back and joins us again. Something was wrong with the connection, and he couldn't go on. Let me add him. Yeah.
Okay.
Welcome back.
So
I'm so happy to see you. Yes, Frank. So we were talking about when we start with our company page on LinkedIn, what are the new things? What are the first things that we should do?
I think the most important thing is being active consistently. Oh,
Okay.
consistently be active, because what happens when I can tell you all the tips right now to do all the tricks that you know you can use to gain a little bit of uh, uh, you know uh, goal recognition or a recognition towards your goals. But what you should do is um, you should be active consistently, because what happens is you'll pick up little things as you're active, right? Uh, you'll pick up little social cues from people that you try to reach out to. You'll pick up social, subtle cultural elements of LinkedIn. As long as you're consistently interacting with content, you'll pick those up as you go. So my first tip, as simple as it is and as non-sexy as it is be active as much as possible. That means, this is what that means. That means connecting with new people consistently. That means engaging with content consistently. Not just one day, not just 3 days out of a whole month. Do it every single day. I'm of the belief that you either use it or you lose it, right? So if you don't use it every single day, then you're really going to lose a lot with regard to the knowledge it takes to really scale your company and get the amount of leads you're trying to get. Now, the other aspect is there's always two approaches to most things, right? To business. There's the sales approach. And what I mean by the sales approach is you're reaching out to people consistently, you're cold calling them, you're trying to sell them right off the bat on LinkedIn. I feel that's a sales approach, right? So that could be like, hey, I have this web design company and I really like your LinkedIn page, and I want to see if you want web design for whatever the case may be. That's a sales approach, right? You're not really building a relationship initially, but it can work. It really depends on your industry and what you're offering. So the only was
Do you
that?
think that building a relationship works faster than building a correct sales strategy on LinkedIn?
I feel like it's a very nuanced question, because based on what I know now, it's a very nuanced question. So yes, building a relationship is faster with regards to getting closed sales. Yes, 100%. However, it depends on the industry too, right? So for example, if I'm providing water to somebody that's extremely thirsty, it doesn't matter how I get a hold of them. They're thirsty, right? You know what I mean? They're thirsty. They need water. So if I send out 100 messages to all these people that need water, it's going to be an easy sale, right? Because I don't need to build a relationship. They need it really bad, right? However, if it's something where it's not an obvious sale, it's not an easy sale, relationship is always the way to go, right? It's always the way to go.
That's true.
And what I mean by that is, all your interactions should be relationship oriented. Meaning, are you starting conversations with people, and are you always do you always have a sale in mind? Is your attitude based on you trying to make a sale all the time? Because people can sniff that out, and if you don't have a giving attitude, people get very turned off if that's not the case. If you don't have a giving attitude, right? And so I think my philosophy is always come onto LinkedIn first with the notion that you're going to provide value in some way, and you're going to start relationships and you're going to start conversations. That's the first thing you need to check, is your attitude. What is your attitude towards going on LinkedIn? Because if your attitude is, I need to make sales right now, and believe me, I know what that's like. I need to make sales right now. I need to make money right now. I know what that's like, but people smell that desperation on you. And because of that, they smell that you're not really putting an effort in towards reaching out to them. And while a sales approach where you're just sending out automated messages via software on LinkedIn, which is what a lot of people do, people at one point that would work. You could send out 100 messages and you get 3 clients, right? But because now so many people have kind of caught on to that, you have to follow the trends. You have to follow. That's why it's very important to be active on LinkedIn, so you understand kind of the culture and what goes on LinkedIn consistently, right? Because if you're on LinkedIn consistently and you start getting spammy messages from people,
Sorry to cut you short, but 100 to 3 is a very low ratio. And to send 100 messages, you will spend a lot of time.
yeah. Yeah.
getting directly to the individual.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I recommend that it's better to focus on building a relationship and offering value to people rather
Yes.
than just sending a sales message. Because usually, I mean, let's say 90% sales messages go unnoticed and people don't even respond to them.
True.
Because usually the sales messages through social media are sent even without need analysis,
Yeah.
without
Exactly.
understanding what this person might need. So if that's not done, there's no point in sending a message. And there are chances that people will rather unfollow the company or the person, the company's representative sending the messages. So we
Absolutely.
come down to relationship building.
Absolutely. Come with the focus of building a relationship, and go to your point, Nousheen. Am I pronouncing your name right, Nousheen?
Yes, it's correct.
Okay. Okay. So, to your point, sending out 100 messages, 3 sales is not a lot of sales, right? And
Yeah.
what it normally does is it may give you the 3 sales, but then it makes a lot of people not want to talk to you. So that the other 97 people, you've probably burned a lot of bridges that you don't know about, but they don't want to talk to you now. They're annoyed by you, right? And so
Yes.
because of that, you should focus on maintaining the relationship with all those 97 people, and the 3 people that are going to become sales anyways will buy from you. They will buy from you, and they'll even appreciate it more that you try to build a relationship with them, but they're going to buy from you anyways. So why do you have to spam all these other set 97 people? You shouldn't
Yeah.
have, right? um,
Yes.
so it's ideal to start real conversations. Look at their profile, mention a few things in their profile, look at the content that they post, mention that, hey, I noticed you liked Damon John's content. I
Mm.
noticed that you like that he's on Shark Tank and that he appreciates being on Shark Tank, or whatever the case may be, right? And these things really stand out, and you'll be surprised at how many responses you'll get because you're more personalized, because it's so uncommon that when you're personalized, it really 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 stands out. And I think it's really valuable for that. Now, um, regarding content, putting out content, this is one of the hardest things for people to do, is put out content consistently, but it's one of the most valuable things that people can do, is putting out
Yes.
content consistently. My business doubled because I put out content consistently every day. Now I've been posting less content lately, uh, which is actually a fault of mine. I have a baby here that I'm getting very little sleep, so uh, I've been posting less content and being less engaged lately. But
Yeah.
I think it's really important to note that
Did it affect your business?
the baby.
No, not the baby. Posting less content.
Oh
Posting
yeah.
less.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I'm getting very little sleep here. So, um,
It's okay.
I think I got like 1 hour of sleep from last
Oh
night.
my
But anyways, yes, it doubled my business. It doubled my business last year, and I was already at 6 figures. Doubled my business last year, and we should. I mean, we should do 7 figures this year. It's been a long time coming, but yeah, I mean, it really, really, really impacted my business. In fact, I'm probably going to get to the point where I do no sales eventually. Once I build my brand big enough, I'm probably going to do no cold calls, no sales, no cold emails, nothing like that. Once I get to, I mean, like Oleg status or something like that. Yeah, I'm just, because what happens is you get so many people coming to you that want to do business with you. I mean, you don't need to convince people. And I think that's one of the number one things people do that cause them to fail in sales, is trying to convince. Somebody says, I'm not really that interested. I don't know if your service it's a great fit. Oh, no, it is. It is. It's a great fit. Let me tell you why. Let me tell you the 5 reasons why it's a great fit. You know, if you get enough leads, you don't need to try to convince people. Now, there's certain exceptions where you can chase people, but but for the most part, don't waste your energy on people that aren't sold on your product or service. That's how I feel. Now, what content does is it convinces people and filters through all the people for you, and brings the best people to you. So what I mean by that is there's 2 components of somebody being a good client. The first component is they pay you the most money. Okay, that's the first component. And the second is they trust you completely and they're committed to working with you. So they pay you money and they trust you completely. If they pay you a lot of money but they don't trust you, it's going to be a nightmare. They're going to question you every step of the way, right? But if they trust you and they pay you money, that's an ideal client. And what content does, putting out content does, is it brings those people to you consistently every month, right? It brings the people that are your best clients, like it's literally your best clients. It brings them to you. Now, the problem that most people have, and jump in anytime, Nousheen, if you want to interject, but the problem with posting content is most people, they don't see it, they don't see how they can see an immediate value. And what I think is, like, people need to stop thinking short term. They need to start thinking long term, as opposed to I need to get business right now. Because think about this: would you rather have a $10,000 client in 2 weeks, or would you rather have $1 million worth of clients in 1 year?
Yeah.
I feel that this is the analogy that compares most to sales versus branding. That makes sense. And I feel like people take the shortcut route and they try to do sales and try to get the $10,000 sale instead of make the $1 million over a year because they took the slow route, right? And and it's understandable because a lot of people, they need to pay their bills, they need to pay everything. But while you're also paying the bills, do the best you can to put out content consistently. What I also think is really, really effective, building strong relationships and combining, especially when you need to make money right away, right? This is what I found. Information and advice applies to companies differently, right? So if I'm a startup and you tell me post content every day for 6 months and then you'll have a really great business, it's probably the best idea, but it's so difficult to get past the fact that you need to feed yourself, you need to feed your family, right?
Yeah.
In the
Yes,
moment.
it has to go faster.
Yeah, exactly. So there's what I think is the most valuable thing to do is combine, in some sense, sales with branding. That makes sense. So
Yes.
let me just explain sales versus branding. Sales is you have no relationship. You're trying to convince people. You're reaching out to them cold. And I'm like the cold call king. I've made thousands of cold calls.
Wow.
And so you reach out to people cold. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but you have to understand what it is. You're trying to convince people to work with you that don't trust you. That's just what it is. Sales.
It's difficult.
Okay?
It's
Yes.
difficult to make them trust you
Exactly.
because they're not knowing you at all.
Exactly. And then you have brand. Brand is anything that entails you gaining people's trust at scale with a lot of people. You gain a lot of people's trust. That's any activity that entails you gaining people's trust. Okay. Now, when you combine the two, sales and branding, that's, I think, the most powerful combination, at least when you're initially starting. When you're initially starting, the most powerful combination is sales and branding. So let me give you an example of that. When you create a webinar or a live event, when you have a live event, what you can do is you can invite speakers that have a lot of credibility, right? And that helps you brand yourself. That helps gain people's trust because, oh, you're on the same stage as this other person. This other person is, a legitimate person. They're well known, and wow, I can't believe you got this speaker. So that helps you build the brand. So you can use sales to get them to an event, potentially even sell the event tickets for $99, something that's low priced, easy barrier to entry, and then use the conference to build a lot of credibility towards your brand, and then you can sell people on your product or service a lot easier. Okay, so if you combine, again, sales, where you reach out to people that don't trust you when you're at least starting, and then invite them to a brand building activity where you have a webinar or whatever the case may be, or people listen to a podcast. It could be anything that builds brand, that builds trust, where you're providing value, and you can convert people a lot easier that way. that's what I feel is the most effective route. That's why all I'm doing now is
Mhm.
webinars, but I'm
Right.
doing like webinar conferences where it's like 3 hours a day for 3 days, you know? And so it just builds so much credibility with people that they want to
Right.
work with you afterwards, you know?
Yes, I can understand that. So it really works.
Yes, yes.
Your
So,
example, your example has explained very well the nature of content companies and professionals can make in order to be more
sorry,
visible and more credible
hold
to
on one
people.
second.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Okay, let's wait till Frank gets back to us. I think there is some connection issue and he couldn't hear us. There we go.
This always
Yes.
keeps
Welcome
happening.
back.
Okay. So yeah, you had a question?
Yeah, I was saying that you've explained very well how the nature of content can actually help companies, businesses, and people build credibility on LinkedIn. Uh, how often do you comment on other people's content, Frank?
Oh,
And how does
that's
it
a good
help?
question. That's a good question. I think so. At my height, I was doing like maybe 30 to 100 comments a day on
Oh, wow.
popular posts. On popular
That's a
posts.
big number.
Yeah. So really, it takes dedication to build a brand, but building a brand is so worth it. It's trust me, it's so worth it if you build a brand because you're gonna get people that buy from you. So like it's so hard because when you don't understand it until you actually experience it. When you get people that like my first what was my first client from branding? I'm trying to think. So I had a client. I don't think this was my first client, but I had a client that called me. I was in a meeting and I had to hang up. Right. I was like, I can't do this. I was selling a course at that point at that time. I'm still have courses and stuff, but I'm not heavily selling them. And I hung up, and the person messaged me and said, "Hey, I know. Do you sell LinkedIn courses? Because I'm really looking for a LinkedIn course." And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "How much is it?" I was like, "Okay, well, I'm going to tell you the price, and then you're going to go away." And I
Yeah.
told her, I told the person it was $1,600 at the time, $1,600. It wasn't that big of a deal, but they came to me like inbound, right? And they said,
Mm.
"Okay." The person said, "Okay, I'm sold." I haven't talked to this person over the phone at all. I'm sold. Credit card number in the text message. I haven't talked to him at all.
Oh, and that's because of branding. In last
And
2 years, all the sales in my company, all of it is happening only through branding.
yeah, branding is so important. And I feel like, honestly, I feel women understand branding more than men initially, at least. Because I feel like
Thank
women,
you. I
I
take it as a compliment, Frank.
yeah, women, they're more like familiar with branding than men. Like men go out in the worst clothes. Like every time a man marries a woman, she like dresses him up and makes him look better. Like tries to get him like healthier, skinnier. All these things,
Yeah.
right? And that's it's in the nature of a female to do branding, to look good, to have a good reputation, things like that. But it's not in the nature of like men are just like, I don't care, whatever, you know. So I feel like it comes more naturally to women. So initially you think it's wrong to do branding because you're like, I need to make sales now. But when you have a strong brand, and again, to your point, commenting other people's posts, if you don't have a brand yourself, you can comment on very popular posts and do it all day long. And you
Yeah.
can comment on a post that has 1 million views and have the
Mhm.
best comment in that post, and you'll get a
Mhm.
thousand likes on that
Yes,
on that comment. And then people will look at your profile, they'll come to you, and you start posting content, they start getting to know you a little bit more. And that's really
exactly.
how it works. And it's just doing that consistently every day. There's no like trick or easy tactic to use to develop your business. You just have to do the same things over and over every single day. Comment on other
Exactly.
people's posts, reach out to people, build real relationships, contact them. Another thing you can do is you can ask people for podcasts in your target clientele.
Yeah,
So
that can work very well.
yeah, almost everybody's flattered when you ask them for an interview. I don't know how many interviews you've asked for, but you know, it doesn't matter how big they
Somewhere.
are or at what level
Too
they are.
many during the pandemic, by the way.
Was that?
I was saying too many interviews during the pandemic.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. So most people they're very open to doing an interview because they feel flattered. So you can start out with asking them for an interview as opposed to trying to sell them something, saying, "Hey, would love to do
Yeah.
a podcast with you." Now you have, the interview with somebody. You're building a relationship with them, so you may gain them as a client. I've gained many clients through podcasting. Okay, but also you have now a piece of content that you can now repurpose and use consistently over and over again, which helps your brand, right? Especially if you interview someone who is well known or somebody that has a strong brand themselves. That can help in multiple ways. So it's really interesting, what people are doing these days, and I really do believe there's a lot of components to building your business. There's a lot of components to making a sale.
Mhm.
But branding is definitely one of those things where if you have a strong brand, you can charge whatever you want.
Yeah.
Now, initially, you also have to define, what your price point is, the best price point is for you. What gets not what is valuable to people? How do you express that value? And what is a low barrier to entry for people to say yes right away if you don't have a brand? If you have a
Yeah.
brand, you can charge whatever you want. Gucci charges
But I
whatever.
think
Yeah.
you're absolutely right on pricing and giving value. But Frank, I believe that low barrier entries are very, very important, especially for the people who are new to you, because they
Yes.
allow them to make a quick decision and take less time. Because in the beginning, if you're going to give your clients a very big price, no matter how valuable your service is, they will take their time to make the decision, and it might become a very long gap. And long gaps are lethal. They might hurt.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And that's why, like for example, I'll give you an example of my webinar. I charge 199 to come to my webinar. Before it was 99, but I raised it because that's what people are buying at. But instead of, like, I have branding packages now that run up to $50,000, right? But if
Yeah.
but in order to establish credibility for myself, I charge them a minimal $199 to people that are multimillionaires. They don't have
Oh,
to think
wow.
about it. They don't have to think about it. They don't have to question whether it's effective or not. They don't have to ask for references. They just buy, oh, 99 bucks, no problem. I'll just get it and we'll check it out. We'll check out the conference. And then you impress
Yeah.
them at the conference, right? And then, or you charge 199 for it. Like, that's what I'm charging now. And then I charge
Mhm.
other prices for other services as well to come to the conference. But I got to tell you, like, the biggest difference maker, you got to charge for a conference you're doing and have a low barrier, low entry point, very low entry point. Until
Mhm.
you establish a brand. Once you have a strong brand, once you have, like, everyone knows you, you're getting interviewed by big media channels and all this, then you can
Mhm.
charge whatever you want. But
Right.
again, that's where, you know, who I'm giving advice comes into play. Who am I giving advice to? Am I giving
Mhm.
advice to a brand new startup, or am I giving advice to somebody that has 10 million followers on all their social media platforms? Much
Yeah,
different conversation.
you're right. You're absolutely right. So, what do you think are the correct messages to send to people to break ice, to start communicating through LinkedIn, even when we are
So
building relationships as a company, as a brand?
one thing I've always liked to do is sending a thank you video. Like, hey, just want to say thank you for being in my network. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a
Mhm.
wonderful day. That alone can break the ice. Again,
Yeah.
asking for an interview from them. Following their content is really key. Following their content is
Mhm.
huge, right?
And
So
then
you
commenting on that. Commenting can
commenting
actually bring
commenting on their
conversation.
content. Yeah, exactly. Commenting on their content. It's kind of like, it's the notion. It's very akin to, when you're in a school setting, or a corporate setting, and there's somebody across the hallway that you don't know, but you've seen them a few times, right? You pass them a few times. You eventually you say hi as you pass them, and then eventually You say hi, you talk to them just a little bit and be like, oh yeah, where are you going? Like, where's this class or whatever the case may be. And then eventually, you start having like a real conversation. And then eventually you go, hey, do you want to help me with my homework? Yeah, let's go over here and you can help me with my homework. Then eventually you're like, hey, do you want to hang out? You want to go to grab, a coffee or pizza or something like that? You hang out and then, you want to come over to my house? That's how relationships develop, and that's how relationships should develop on social media too. It should be organic and natural, not forced, right?
And then one more thing, that when you're posting
Yeah,
your own content, even if it's for brand awareness or for sales or for just the sake of visibility or for offering value in some way, it's important to add some achievements to your content. Add your own business achievements, add your customer stories,
yeah,
because those
testimonial.
stories will help people get attracted to you. So
Yeah,
this is the reason we have, even on websites, we have testimonials, we have success stories section, we have those little snippets from our clients. So the same could also be used on LinkedIn to ensure that clients are attracted to your business and are willing to work with you.
yeah, absolutely, 100%. I agree. And just slowly gaining their respect and attention and trust is going to help you long term. So if you're consistently putting out value, getting people to get to know you for whatever reason, if people see you consistently, just being consistent will get you clients every day. Now, it might not happen right away, but it will happen if you just keep posting. And I think that's the biggest problem that people have is they don't keep posting. They're not doing it every day. They think they just post one time and that's how it works. No, if people get to know you, if people get to know your story, I posted about my daughter. You know about my daughter from my
From
posts.
LinkedIn.
Yeah, exactly, from LinkedIn. So you mentioned you already knew some things about me that I didn't have to tell you right now, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all this is how do you go into a room without
Mhm.
having to introduce yourself?
Yeah.
How do you manipulate the situation where you go into a room and everyone already knows you? You don't have to
Mhm.
introduce yourself. They feel they know you. And that's what happens when you build a strong brand. And it takes a long time, it takes a lot of effort, and that's why not everyone wants to do it. But the growth potential of your company is huge if you stick with it. And it's going to take time, but if you stick with it and you keep posting content, you keep commenting on posts, you keep doing it every single day, eventually people will start to recognize you and they'll start to pull out their wallets and want to pay you because they recognize you and they feel they trust you.
Yeah. So, Frank, what do you recommend? How many times should a person post on LinkedIn during a day?
I'm not even sure I'm the right person to ask about that. uh, because I mean, I've posted like 11 times in one day. Uh,
Wow.
yeah.
I never did that.
But the thing is, like, here's the thing: when people have this misconception that everyone
Mm.
in your network sees your post when you post. So they're like, oh my gosh, if I'm posting 11 times, it's like people are going to see my post for 11 times. I don't want them to see my post 11 times, right? It's not necessarily the case. It's like people like maybe like 5% of your network will see your post, and then a different 5% will see the next post, and then a different 5% will see the next post. So,
Mm.
well, as long as you're getting good feedback, if you're getting a bunch of feedback where it's like people are like, "Wow, you're annoying me, please stop," if you're getting that feedback, then you should definitely change your approach. But
Yeah.
um, I think you should be posting as consistently as possible. You don't know which piece of content is gonna resonate with your audience, right? It's just very
I
difficult. Like,
believe that. Yeah, you're right. I believe that it's a matter of quality, that a company or a brand or a person should focus on giving quality content and as frequently as is possible. Like
yeah,
one great posted on a single day can do the magic. And if you're
that's
posting 11 times and it's not really interesting enough or engaging enough or captivating enough, it's not going to
yeah.
work.
I would say post things that your audience wants, but quality content is such a subjective term. It's so subjective. So the way I find out what's quality is I find out what my audience is responding to the most. And
Yeah.
for me, I don't know. This is my philosophy, and people can have different viewpoints, right? But
Mhm.
for me, like posting a good amount of content helps me find out what my audience responds to fastest, and so I can
Okay.
post higher quality content based on the engagement of this one piece of content. If that makes sense.
Great.
Because I post, like,
I
let's
like
say, huh?
I like your response very much.
Yeah, yeah. So like for me, it's like, okay, I get 11, post 11 pieces of content. One piece of content is the only piece of content that really did well. It got like 10,000 or
Mhm.
20,000 views or 50,000 views. I have 3 posts that have above 2 million views. Okay, um, so you find that content, and then you make a really really nice content based on that same niche or that same area that you talked about, right? That same topic, and then just heighten the quality, heighten the production, heighten everything, but do it based on real evidence, as opposed to I'm going to think of this high quality content in my head because I think I know
Mhm.
what my audience wants, and then you post it and then it gets nothing, no traction, right? Uh, just be very very active. If you can be really, like, that's why it's so important. I go back to my initial point. Be
Yeah.
so active that it's like, like when you have a group of friends, you're around, and everyone knows each other so well that they can finish each other's sentences. And sometimes, there's this like almost like inside joke that everyone has. They can do these inside jokes, right?
Mhm.
Well, imagine that's LinkedIn, and you don't know all the inside jokes yet. You don't know your audience so well yet. But if you're consistently, like, if you get to know people more, if you get to see the content on LinkedIn consistently, you see the culture of LinkedIn, you start getting to know like what's okay, what's not okay, what's cool, what's not
Mhm.
cool, right?
Mhm.
As opposed to like you've never posted content, or you try to do an inside joke in a group that doesn't understand your personality, and you don't understand their personality, they may be offended by it, right?
Exactly. And they might respond very negatively.
Yeah, they might respond extremely negatively, and then they complain to LinkedIn or something. I don't know.
Yes.
And so it's important that you're so active that you start to understand the culture. You start to understand what people respond to the most. You start to get to know influencers, because what will happen is, as you start building more of a following,
Mhm.
influencers will start to, people that have big followings too. Like for me, I feel like my following is decent. It can be a lot more, a lot more prolific, but you know, influencers, comment on my posts. I can get a phone call answered by my call, most of the time if I'm calling influencers, because they just recognize my content. So there's almost this multiplying effect with other people like that have a big following too, where they get to know you too, and if they get to know you, they comment on your post, they share it with their audience, right? So I think that's
So,
the best way and the most organic way to do it.
yeah, yeah, true. I just showed the birthday wish here. Sorry, the congratulations for the new baby here for you, because
Yeah,
I also wanted to say the same. We are very happy about the new baby, and we wish
yeah,
her all the
ready
best.
to
And
promote it to daddy.
yeah, the daddy shirt is amazing, cool.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, she's so cute. I don't know, like, I don't know if you experienced this when you had your child, your boy, but
Yeah,
it's like the best,
it's the
best
best
feeling.
feeling. I know. I know.
Yeah, it's
Our children are the best people we've met.
yeah, absolutely. It's almost like you want to tear up sometimes just by looking at your baby. It's
Yeah,
like the amount of joy and happiness it brings. It's like unmatched
it's
for sure.
amazing. True, true. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today, Frank. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you, and we talked about so many great things. Let's talk more about LinkedIn again, sometime when you've had enough sleep and you wanted to share more stories.
Sure. Thank you so much, Sheena. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
All right. Take care. Bye for now.